Hey gamers, what's up? Muzz here from L1 Games once again with a video for you. Today I'm going to do 10 more unpopular video game opinions. This makes a total of 30. If you've watched my other two, I did 20 more prior to this. I really like this. It's a lot of fun to do. I like sharing these opinions with you. I find it pretty interesting sometimes that I normally see these things that people say, oh, like this game is great, or I love this about gaming. And I'm like, wow, like no one seems to agree with me. And then I do the video and I say, well, I think this, and all these people end up agreeing with me. So I almost think sometimes my opinions aren't as unpopular as I think they are, but I leave that to you to figure out. So let's just jump right into it. Number one, FMV games like Night Trap are actually really good. They're challenging and they're fun. Now I know a lot of people, they look at Night Trap as the prime example, right? And they're like, oh, it's such a bad game, it's such a... No, it's not. And anyone who loves like Dragon's Lair or Space Ace or Brain Dead 13 can't tell me that FMV games don't have a place in gaming and that they can't be fun. In fact, I think my favorite is Double Switch. It's a game that plays very much like Night Trap, but takes place in a hotel with kind of an Egyptian theme, and it starred Corey Haim, Debbie Harry, Blondie, she was an 80s pop icon, and Arlie Ermey, who you might know as the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. And I love these games. They don't hold your hand. They're not for babies. They're very difficult. They take a lot of trial and error, and I think that's why a lot of people hate them so much. But in the end, it's a fulfilling, fun experience, and it's just an awesome way to tell a story. Number two, the Switch is the best current gen console. Sorry, look, I know the PS4 and the Xbox One are far more powerful, and I play them a lot. But the Switch is just, it's the console for everyone. It's a console for children. It's a console for casual gamers. It's a console for hardcore gamers. It's got a game for everyone. And the fact that it's a portable and console hybrid is just icing on the cake. It's outstanding. It's a console that should have been done years ago. It's everything the Wii U should have been. It's everything the PSP and the Vita, when you worked with the connectivity with the PlayStation 3 and 4, it's everything they wanted to be. It's the perfect console. It's outstanding. And the fact that it's a little less powerful isn't a big deal to me. Power doesn't make a console, you know, innovation makes a console. This console is great from conception, and it has the great software to back it up, and I think it's the best system out right now. Number three, Conker's Bad Fur Day? It's not that good. Everyone raves about this game like it's so great, and I've gone back and played it in recent years, and I just can't get into it. It's not that funny. It's not that great. I mean, I get the shock value of the time was probably pretty intense, like, oh wow, this is so wrong, this drunk squirrel, blah blah blah, but games have evolved and games have gotten a little more shocking than that. So yeah, sure, it's a cute little character who does bad things, but in the end, it's really not that shocking, it's really not that crazy, it's really not that funny, and it's not a great game. I mean, in terms of the story, in terms of what's happening, and in terms of mechanics, like I can't get into it, and I don't think it's aged well. And maybe for its time, when it was what it was something special, but today, it's just not. Number four, Grand Theft Auto Vice City is a better game than San Andreas. I think this one is definitely more subjective. It's more about what I enjoy in terms of storytelling, and I never got into San Andreas that much. I didn't like the characters, I didn't find any of it interesting. There were a lot of gameplay elements that I enjoyed that were pretty awesome, bulking up my character and stuff, and you know, going out and eating fast food, you can make your character fat. Like, there were cool things that happened in the game, but the story never pulled me in the same way that Vice City did. I love mafia stories, and there was just something about that Miami vibe it had that was really cool. And Vice City is probably actually still my favorite of the Grand Theft Auto franchise to this day, with 5 coming in at a close second. Number 5, the 3DO is actually a great console. Now I know the 3DO is on all those lists of the worst consoles ever and the biggest failures of all time, blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, it was a failure. There's no getting past that, but so was the Dreamcast, and it was a great console. And the GameCube sold the least amount of the competing systems of its generation. And it was a great console. And the Saturn was a great console. You know, just because a console didn't succeed doesn't mean it's not great. And the 3DO was great. It had all these great exclusives when it launched that later were ported to the Saturn and the PlayStation and were not as good when they were ported. Space Hulk, Killing Time, you know, PO'd. There's a ton of games that were great on the 3DO. And to this day, there are actually a few games that are still exclusive on it. And I think they're outstanding. Mercenary, Quarantine. These are awesome titles that today don't get a lot of credit from collectors. And I think it's because a lot of people haven't played them, because a lot of people are under the impression that the 3DO is this terrible system. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So you guys can leave a comment if you feel the same or otherwise and let me know what you think. Number 6, the PlayStation controller isn't all that great. And over the years, Sony has done very little to innovate it. And I think anyone who really knows a lot about gaming will agree with me on this, or at least have a hard time arguing it. We know the original PlayStation was going to be a CD attachment for the Super Nintendo. We know that the design of the original PlayStation controller is pretty much a copy of the Super Nintendo controller. Add a couple handles and 2 shoulder buttons, and it's the same controller. So that is the controller we had with the PlayStation, that dog bone shape that Nintendo created, until the DualShock came out. And then Sony added 2 thumbsticks. But when did they do that? They only did that after the N64 controller came out. So Sony matched it and did dual analog. They actually did one step above. And since then, it was the same controller all the way until the PS4. And the PS3 controller isn't much different at all from the original DualShock PlayStation controller. I mean, sure, you had some pressure sensitive buttons, you had some tilting, 6-axis control and all that, but controller for controller, it's pretty much the same. The PS4 controller was a great design. It's more ergonomic, it's comfortable, but that stupid touchscreen is horrible, and it was the most gimmicky thing they could have done when they really could have put an LCD screen on there and made it a phenomenal controller. I'm also not a fan of those parallel analog sticks versus like the offset analog sticks. So yeah, I don't think Sony has done much, or at least enough, to make the PlayStation controller really stand out. And Sony's never been, in my opinion, a great innovator in the home console market to begin with. And that controller is just proof positive of that. Number 7, Madden games are kind of a ripoff. Look, I know a lot of you go out every year and buy the new Madden game, but what kills me is these are the games that have the least amount of research and development. It's the same game every year with new uniforms, new stats, whatever they add to it. But I feel like most of that could be added with a DLC patch. They do DLC for everything. They want you to buy all this extra content, but they're not willing to upgrade last year's Madden title to this year's stats and uniforms. It's a little crazy. And I know sometimes they'll do like touch-ups on the control, they'll tweak this or that, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, they're the same game, and I think a lot of that could be achieved via download, but they don't want you to do that. Every year, they release a game that they put the least amount of R&D into for $60, and they expect you to go out and buy it. And I think that's kind of a ripoff. Number 8, I'd rather play traditional fighting games than Smash Brothers. In fact, I'm not even a huge Smash Brothers fan. Give me a game like Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Soul Calibur, any of those, Power Stone even. I can't get into Smash Brothers. I don't enjoy playing them. I don't like the control style. I don't like much about them at all, except for the characters that's in them. So Mortal Kombat's the game that really got me back into gaming in the 90s, and it's the reason I am here today doing what I do, really. It like kind of brought me back into that love of gaming, and that might be part of it. And then my first 3D fighter was Virtua Fighter, and then Soul Calibur really pulled me in after that. It was the first time a console game was better than the arcade, in my opinion. And just those are the games that really made me enjoy fighters. So games like Smash Brothers, I don't like them. I don't dig them. It's a lot more chaotic, I think, than the way I like a fighting game to be. And I don't know. I have a really hard time taking it seriously. Number 9, clone systems are great. I don't care what anyone says. All these people getting the colors are washed out, or this sound isn't that great. Look, I'm not a videophile. I'm not an audiophile. Emulation, I don't think, is a terrible thing in terms of like whether my game is going to play exactly like the cartridge. I'm not doing record-breaking speed runs. I'm just playing the game, and for the most part, I find that the clone systems play the games pretty much just like the original systems, and I don't mind that. It gives me an opportunity, especially in the multi-systems, to play my games and leave my original consoles in their pristine condition without getting any additional wear and tear. I'm cool with that. It's a good thing. And I especially like consoles like the Retron 5, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Famicom, Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. It's a multi-system that I can really use. I hook it up, it goes straight into my HDTV, which is great. It has the filters, the save states. I just think that for the purpose they serve, they're great consoles to have. Are they a substitute, like a replacement for the original consoles? Of course not. I still want those original consoles in my collection because I'm a fan of video game history. But just for everyday playing, I have no problem with clone systems. And number 10, the PS2 is actually my least favorite console of the 6th gen. And look, I get it has maybe the best game library, but it's not my favorite console. I think each console before it had something that I really liked that made me choose it over the PS2. The Dreamcast was a phenomenal system. It was ahead of its time. It had 4 control ports. It had the VMU, which was groundbreaking. It had a built-in modem. Everything it did well, and it was really a great console. The game library on the Dreamcast is also phenomenal. If you look, there are more hits than misses. It's outstanding. The GameCube, another underrated console, 4 controller ports. We, of course, didn't like the media for it, the little mini disc, but outside of that, it was great. It had all those great Nintendo franchises. It was an outstanding system. And the Xbox was just a massive powerhouse. Every game that was on the PS2 and on the Xbox, in my opinion, was better on the Xbox, with the exception of Metal Gear Solid 2. So, I don't know. The PS2 was a great console, had a great game library. It changed a lot about gaming, especially when you consider the demographics of gaming of the time. It kind of brought gaming to where it is now. It was definitely a landmark console, but not my favorite of the 6th generation. In fact, my least favorite. And that's it for now, guys. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you have any opinions of your own, varying opinions, you want to argue something with me, that's fine. Leave a comment down below and we'll talk about it. But I'm going to get out of here. I really would love it if you check out my social media. You can catch me on Twitter at L1Games. You can catch me on Instagram at L1Muzz. That's M-U-Z-Z. And you can check me out on Facebook. I have an L1 Games group and page. So I will see you all soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you later.